Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I never imagined that walking into a courtroom could feel like stepping into a carnival. The air was heavy with judgment, but somehow, the absurdity of it all struck me first. My wife, Penelope, was grinning. Not a smile of relief or even amusement. It was the kind of laugh that stung, the kind that dripped with the satisfaction of finally having the upper hand. I was Ethan, 38, and 9 months of waiting, of emotional standoffs, of cold dinners and endless silent nights, had led to this exact moment. The judge had signed our divorce, and Penelope laughed like it was the greatest joke she'd ever heard. It wasn't the first time I had been blindsided. For years, I'd tried to read the signs, to understand when the warmth between us had slowly turned into this icy distance. Penelope had always been vivacious, full of charm and sparkle. Our first date was in a tiny bookstore downtown, and she laughed at every bad joke I made. I wasn't particularly confident back then, but she made me feel like I was the only person in the room that mattered. Friends teased us about how inseparable we were, how the energy between us was magnetic. I thought we had forever. I thought she felt it too. But over time, life, as it tends to do, chipped away at that magic. We moved into a bigger apartment, I got promoted at work, and Penelope started her own graphic design business. Exciting things, yes, but they brought stress, exhaustion, and quiet resentment. I didn't complain. I tried to stay supportive, made her coffee in the mornings, handled the bills, kept the apartment clean. But the small gestures that once made her eyes light up were met with a polite nod or a distracted smile. I remember the evening that really shook me. We were supposed to celebrate her birthday. I had booked a quaint little restaurant, the kind with fairy lights strung across the patio and live jazz softly playing in the background. She walked in, looked around, and laughed. Not the warm, infectious laugh I remembered, but a sharp, almost theatrical one, like she was laughing at the situation rather than enjoying it. She said, "You didn't really think I'd enjoy this, did you?" I felt my stomach twist, a tight knot forming. I forced a smile, but inside, I knew something fundamental had changed. Over the next several months, the tension grew. Every conversation became a negotiation. Every touch a gamble. I tried to bring up our issues gently, hoping for an honest discussion. "Penelope," I said one evening, "I feel like we're drifting. Can we talk?" She rolled her eyes, tapping on her phone. "Not now, Ethan. I'm busy." That was it. No acknowledgement, no concern. The distance between us wasn't just emotional anymore. It was tangible, almost physical. I tried everything I could think of to reconnect. I left little notes around the house, planned weekend getaways, even joined a pottery class because she had mentioned wanting to try it months ago. And yet, each effort was met with polite disinterest or, worse, subtle disdain. I started to feel invisible in my own home, like a ghost moving through a space that had once been ours. And through it all, I stayed calm, stayed respectful, because I believed in the vows we had made. I wanted to fix what was broken, even if she didn't seem to care. Then came the text that changed everything. A simple message: "Ethan, I want a divorce. Please direct all future communication through my lawyer." Her name popped up on my phone, and I stared at it for what felt like an eternity. My chest tightened, a slow pulse of disbelief and quiet fury. 15 years of marriage, gone with a few cold words. No warning, no discussion, no acknowledgement of the years we had shared, just the sterile authority of legalese. The weeks leading up to the courthouse were surreal. I kept myself busy, organizing our shared accounts, finishing work projects, and quietly processing the reality that Penelope had already moved on in her mind. And then the day arrived. The courtroom smelled of varnish and recycled air, and I remember looking at the panel of faces around me. Strangers, lawyers, and the judge, and thinking how strange it was that something so intimate, so deeply personal, was being reduced to signatures and stamped forms. When the judge finally signed, that laugh hit me first. A sharp, almost mocking sound that echoed in my ears. I looked at Penelope, and she didn't even try to hide her satisfaction. Part of me wanted to argue, to yell, to scream at the injustice of it all, but I didn't. I took a deep breath, a slow, steadying pull of air that felt like the first time I had truly accepted reality. I walked out of that room with my head high, my back straight, and my heart quietly aching. I didn't retaliate. I didn't beg. I simply let it be. The first few months after the divorce were strange, almost disorienting. I moved into a small apartment across town, carrying only what I truly needed. It was quiet, much quieter than I had expected, and at first the silence felt suffocating. But gradually it became a balm. For the first time in years, I could breathe without restraint. I could eat breakfast without watching the clock, without wondering if Penelope would glare at me for making too much noise. I could exist without walking on eggshells, and it felt unexpectedly liberating. I threw myself into work and my hobbies. I started running early in the mornings, the cold air whipping against my face as a reminder that I was alive and capable of moving forward. I even joined a local photography club, something I had always wanted to do but had postponed for the marriage, for compromise, for peace that never truly existed. Yet, amidst the routines and distractions, Penelope lingered in the background of my thoughts. Her laughter that day in court haunted me, not with anger, but with curiosity. How could someone who once seemed so vibrant and warm be so cold, so unrecognizable, so certain of her satisfaction in ending something we both shared? 9 months later, life delivered a twist I didn't see coming. I was attending a small local art exhibition, mostly to show off some photographs I had been working on, when I noticed her across the gallery. Penelope, looking slightly older but still striking, her expression tense, almost anxious. The laughter that had been so sharp in the courthouse was gone. She looked different, smaller somehow, less certain, and for a fleeting second, it was almost like the old Penelope I remembered had been hiding behind the veneer of confidence. I froze, not in fear, but in disbelief. She hadn't seen me yet. My mind raced through the countless scenarios of what could happen next. Would she apologize? Would she try to explain herself? Or would she ignore me completely, as she had done so many times before? Then she walked over. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was soft, hesitant, almost a whisper compared to the booming laughter from before. "Ethan," she said. The single word carried more weight than I anticipated. I nodded slightly, keeping my expression neutral. I had rehearsed what I might say to her 1,000 times in my head, but none of those rehearsals matched the reality of seeing her here, 9 months later, looking uncertain and, strangely, regretful. I didn't realize," she began, glancing down at the floor, then back at me, "how much this would hurt, how much I'd miss." Her words faltered, and she trailed off, as if the weight of admitting regret was heavier than she could carry. I didn't interrupt. I didn't need to. I had spent months preparing for this, preparing to feel nothing, to stay composed, to keep my dignity intact. For a long moment, we stood there in the gallery, the hum of other visitors around us fading into background noise. I studied her carefully, noting the subtle changes, the softness in her eyes that had been replaced by sharpness 9 months ago. And then, with a calm I hadn't known I possessed before, I said, "Penelope, I hope you find what you're looking for." Not as a rebuke, not as a pitying remark, but simply as a statement of closure. She blinked, almost as if she hadn't expected this measured response. A mix of surprise, longing, and understanding crossed her face, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free from the emotional tug-of-war, free from the uncertainty, free from the need to fight for affection that had long since evaporated. We parted that evening without promises, without recriminations, without lingering glances that would pull us back into the past. And yet, something in that brief encounter cemented the truth I had been learning all along. Closure isn't about revenge. It isn't about proving someone wrong. It isn't even about forgiveness. It's about understanding your own worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. In the months that followed, I continued to rebuild myself. I focused on friendships, on small victories, on things that made me happy independently of anyone else. Penelope remained a memory, a complicated, bittersweet memory, but it no longer held power over me. And as I reflected on the journey from that courtroom to the gallery, I realized that the laughter I had once resented had been a catalyst. It forced me to see the truth about our marriage, about her, and, most importantly, about myself. Life is strange that way. Sometimes the people we think will spend forever with turn out to be the ones who push us toward our own strength. I walked away from that marriage not in anger, but with clarity. And when I saw her 9 months later, I understood that regret, though painful, belongs to the one who acted in haste, not to the one who has learned to stand firm in their own truth. I am Ethan, 38, and that day at the gallery, I finally laughed. Not with mockery, not with spite, but with quiet relief. Because I had survived, I had grown, and I had reclaimed myself. And for the first time in a long time, the world felt open, bright, and entirely my own.